All right. Hello, everyone. We're going to get started on first presentation of this week. There's two of them. Really, we're talking about the key trends in IT, and then we're going to talk about um, uh, enterprise systems. So this will kind of drive us into that second conversation. Before we begin, what we want to keep in mind is everything starts in the bottom left. You've got small businesses to major enterprise. There's needs for managing information. And from the bottom left to the right, as business complexity increases, as it grows, right, from a small business to a major enterprise, you've got a lot of staff more staff, you've got more complexity. And then as your IT complexity increases, the connection with the business decreases. And as a result, your IT risks ceasing to be viewed as a strategic asset. So we've talked about this for the last 3 weeks. And so we're going to continue to reiterate this theme. When you have a small company, it's just you, that woman down there with the PC. She is doing the business, right? She knows everything about why she needs that data, and she knows why she needs to execute those processes. As it gets larger and larger, and we start to distribute and become functional, people they lose sight of what they're doing on a day-to-day basis versus what IT is doing. They don't know why all the investment. As that complexity increases, the need for all of that information to be distilled to the point that every person in the company understands what IT is doing, and also understands the data and information that IT is providing to them, that increases. We're starting to see that come back around with what we're doing with big data, with search, with all the capabilities that big data is bringing us, and crowdsourcing and such. But that's going to be important evolution of information as we move forward. All activities create data. Most of it winds up being lost, okay? What we can retain becomes then information. And that information, when used effectively, can become knowledge that we can build our overall strategy on, and we can build our competitiveness on. That's an asset. Used correctly, it becomes competitive advantage and becomes wisdom. I'll go through three different examples here to show how information technology drives competitive advantage. If you think about your business, on the left there, you got your raw marketing, raw materials, labor, everything goes into a business, right? And then your information can be executed or gained by through analytics, your supply chain system, your HR system, your analytics, all this. What that translates to, if done well, is greater market share, lower cost, smarter pricing, all of those benefits that you want, where you could do your business on the left without doing anything in the middle. And what's going to wind up is you're just not going to be able to compete. You might hit okay from the beginning if you're lucky, but then you won't be able to respond, won't be able to adapt, won't be able to make your competitive advantage, your business more competitive moving forward. So think about the top one. You're just a small restaurant, right? What's the technology? Personal computer, some financial software, point of sale system, maybe some web analytics. What kind of support do you need? Well, it's going to be off the shelf contract, probably to hire someone to come fix your PCs or something. Maybe you get some cloud storage for yourself. Go to that middle business. Now you're dealing in something a little bit bigger. Maybe it's a clinic. You got some technology there, like some best of breed applications, clinical applications, point of sale again, transportation, hospitality, whatever you need for a hospital or a clinic or something like that. There's going to be integration middleware involved, significant archive data, right? Because you have to for regulatory reasons. There's going to be a network infrastructure, probably multiple rooms, buildings, that kind of stuff, telecom, web analytics, obviously. What kind of support are you going to need for that? Now you need contracted software support. You're going to need internal IT hardware support. Likely, it's cost effective to have some internal support. Maybe dedicated data centers, disaster recovery contracts in case you need to come offline, that kind of thing. So you're getting a little bigger. Now you're getting some big functional areas. Now you got this big production company. Let's take a look at them. Who they got? Well, they got robotics. They got their CAD/CAM systems, engineering that's being done, enterprise resource planning is a piece of software they've got put in there. They've got software for facilities management. They have software for doing functions about the business that don't even make money for them. They're just to manage those parts of the business. Global supply chain. What kind of support are they going to need? All of the software is going to be contracted support. They're going to need internal IT to do some specific things that they think are going to give them competitive advantage. They're going to need internal IT support. They're going to need dedicated data center probably. Maybe they have their own on-prem cloud. Maybe they're not using the cloud services provided. They're using on-prem. If so, then you've got some different capabilities. Obviously, you've got a much larger operation going there. But all three of those are doing the same thing that we had in the prior chart. They're taking data, they're making information, they're getting knowledge out of it, and trying to apply it to become into wisdom so that they can become better at their business. Those businesses need to align with the customers. Any outdated customer experiences are going to lead to outdated business models. Examples there, with retail, it just people aren't doing that anymore. People aren't going to Blockbuster, right? So as long as you don't map to the customers, you're going to have these problems with your business model. And not every business model is a digital business model, but every modern business model needs to incorporate digital realities. So I'm be careful about that. Not every business model is a digital business model, but every business model needs to incorporate digital. So big data, Internet of Things, mobile and social capabilities, whatever your business is, whether it's a person-to-person investment group like Edward Jones or something like that, their business model is still people, but they now leverage a lot of technology to make that people engagement happen. The business model has to incorporate digital. Three components within your business process. The inputs we talked about, right? Raw materials, knowledge, expertise, all that. The activities that they're gonna be applied to those, and deliverables, either products that are coming out the door or services and plans, actions that you're delivering people. That's the business process that we apply to. When you talk about competitive advantage, this is where IT and digital transformation is going to be key. There'll be short-term components of competitive advantage, like your immediate market presence, who you're serving, what kind of capital you have, what kind of knowledge you have that the competitor doesn't have. Those are short term because that can be gained. People can leave the company, go to the competitor, take it with them. People can, it's just whatever your competitive advantage is. It's like iPhones. You always got to be coming out with the next one on the short term components. Your long term components are agility, responsiveness, and flexibility. And what that means, companies that can churn out continued success, like continued improvements on the product and stay ahead of their competition, that's because they have those long-term components right. They are built agile, they're built responsive, they have flexibility. And that's where this digital transformation is going to be so important. Because if you've built into your company the ability to quickly get data, to quickly process the important stuff out of it, to quickly turn that in for information and build out the knowledge base across the company, then you're going to be a lot more agile, a lot more responsive, and a lot more flexible going forward. All right, all that being said, this week we're talking about reality. So there's future state and there's a real world. And the books will tell you what you should do and what you should have. Reality will tell you what you can do and what you do have. And we need to leverage all of your existing resources to accomplish that overall, that the process, business process that I was telling you about. So you have to understand your existing resources. And most likely, whatever IT department you take charge of, it's going to be a combination of legacy and modern technologies, right? You're going to have some things that are solid and reliable and some things that are experimental. It's not going to be one or the other. You don't get a clean slate to start your IT off with. You will have developed a lot of systems in mode one. So it'd be an major undertaking to transition anything forward. You've got to be able to fight with the army that you got, not the army that you want to have. And so let's take a look at what that means. Legacy IT infrastructure typically looks like this. You got user applications, you get desktop software, applications with fat clients, not the things that you want, personal device hardware, everyone's got a personal device. And then you got these business applications that are operating probably on servers someplace, and an internal network, cabling, routers, everything throughout the business to keep yourself connected. Then you've got some outside connectivity, right, to the World Wide Web. And that's kind of the legacy architecture of what typical businesses have. In a service-oriented IT infrastructure, you're going to have basically your IT strategy and some business infrastructure over on the left, which is just going to be the things that you actually need to have physically to be able to access information. And then going straight out to the web, then you're going to have all that cloud provisioning, software as a service, platform as a service, all of those different things that you want to help desk as a service, all this stuff that just reach out across the cloud to be able to provide that information in a more efficient standpoint. The most likely IT scenario is going to be, instead of one of those two scenarios, is going to be a mix. You're going to have some parts of your business, depending on your enterprise model that you have and your enterprise structure, your operating model, whether you're distributed or whether you're common, you're going to have some businesses, maybe they have a lot of physical stuff. Some businesses are strictly cloud. It'll be a mix, right? Or maybe a mix by function, depending on how the stuff has been employed over time. So you'll have some physical hardware. You might have a data center or two, but maybe most of the business is operating on the cloud now. And there's some mix of this operation. You got to be able to maneuver through all of that. And in order to do that, you need to understand then, where are we going to make our investments, and how do we make investments in the parts of this that are maybe a little bit more legacy than we'd like, but would have the most impact going forward. So you got to understand your business activity. There's transaction processing systems. And then they take business data and put it into databases for further action, like internal transactions, payroll, those kinds of functions, and external, buyers, suppliers, partners, those kinds of business activities. That's happening on a regular basis, right? So there's that churn going on. And there's batch processing, things that store up all your transactions and execute them. Those tend to cost less, they're less accurate, but they happen. And then there's real time, right? Your online transaction processing. This is stuff that's happening on demand. This is with your customer base. If they're buying directly from the company, these tend to be more accurate. They tend to cost a lot more to actually get those systems in place. But this is kind of how these systems tend to support the business activity that's going on. Internally, you've got management activity, right? You've got management information services in those systems that are using the data that you've collected to help guide the business and manage operations. Decision support systems that are more specific to user problems or areas of needs or analysis and those kinds of things. Those are happening for management activity. You've got your database management systems. And those keep all the data from the business in an organized, retrievable manner. Your book calls them OLTP, online transaction processing. This is the key source of data that most of the business systems will be going against. Web and big data sources are very useful, but they do a little bit different function, as we'll talk about as we go forward. This is how you do your data filtering, profiling, your data integrity, maintenance, synchronization, security, access. All this happens in OLTP. These are going to be optimized for extremely fast transaction processing. And typically there'll be one of these for each major system that you've got. Your OLAP, which is different, these are your data warehouses and your data marts. These aren't optimized for speed of transactions. They're unstructured. They're there for analysis, data mining. You throw a bunch of data out there and learn about your system, learn about your customers. Then you make decisions. And those decisions will be implemented back into your other systems with the OLTP. And they'll go in and say, all right, here's how we have to execute on a day-to-day basis, on a minute-by-minute basis. Then there's electronic records management. And what this means is we also need to be able to keep data, not just as databases, not just as big data storage, but there are some records that we need to keep. Business records, financial records, medical records, those kinds of things, the activity of the business. You don't want to fill up your DBMS with all this old data, so you have to have some other way to store it, right? And that's electronic records management. So we'll get into e-commerce a little bit. There's a couple of things that we talk about in e-commerce. One is business to consumer. So think about direct consumer marketing, going on your phone and ordering things. That's business to consumer. That's e-commerce, right? There's also e-commerce from business to business. And the value of e-commerce from business to business, which was actually the first one that started up, was automating that back-end supplier thing. Because there's always this waiting for a call. This guy's got to call in. We're going to order this many. If you can just automate all that stuff so it happens immediately, then you take a lot of cost and a lot of time, and you reduce inventory sizes, all those great things. That's business to business, automatic transactions. Get contracts and service layer agreements in place, and then you just execute from a supplier to a buyer to a purchasing standpoint. It controls the costs, streamlines the processes. Electronic exchanges, similar to that, but basically within the industry supplier up and down your chain, you've got an exchange of parts for end products that actually just happens on a regular basis. Or horizontally, multiple types of industries like office supplies, you have that exchange coming in. And then there's mobile commerce, which is similar to business to consumer. It's the same kind of thing, but the things that are really focused on the mobile environment today, QR codes, all that kind of thing that you got to be able to support. The enterprise systems, and we're going to talk more about these in the next presentation. You've got those different types of engagement, right? Those types of engagement with the systems. What enterprise systems do is really say, all right, we've got that external on the left there, and you get your support systems happening, right, with your suppliers and such. There's this integration that has to happen around the main functions of the business. So more than just systems related to manufacturing or sale of a product, enterprise systems execute the operations of the entire business. And they do it through execute that strategy through the management of information of the company. In the main areas that you see here: sales and marketing, human resources, manufacturing, production, transportation, accounting, and finance. These are systems that support that part of the business, because those are critical parts of every business, and they do it most effectively around the transaction processing systems that you set up, however those happen to be coming in, and then allow for that external from partners and suppliers and customers to then interface with the company through a common interface without having to mess with those systems. Those systems are internal and they're best of breed. Okay. The functional areas that we're going to be looking at that are most important, or that tend to break out, is your manufacturing production. So this is the functional area that actually buys materials, quality control, schedules, shipping, receipt, all the things that you would think about in that translation process from resources into deliverables. Manufacturing production is what you tend to think about, right? That's what a business is. But there's also the accounting, right? Keeping balances up to date, dispersing funds, posting statements, and there's finance. So not accounting. Accounting is the activity of actually managing all of that financial transactions. Finance is the actual CAS, asset and credit management, SEC reporting. How are they managing the business's money? Okay. IT, then, that's us, information services, and sales and marketing. So how are we getting that customer connection, that customer pull that will pull through manufacturing production and steer the accounting, finance? And then HR, so all the management of the people that are doing all those functions above. Going into each one of these, we'll go a little bit into this. Your book goes to topics. I will have in these charts just kind of the key things that I want you to learn this week about these systems. There's production operations management systems. Like we talked about, they transform inputs. They rely heavily on transportation management systems, which your book talks about. So logistics management, inventory control, just-in-time, lean systems, quality control, all those things are key. When you get into sales and marketing systems, you're talking about some functions like managing data, managing sales and distribution channels, doing the marketing processes themselves to your customers, performing profitability analysis. Okay, so looking at, well, when we sell to this customer set, they tend to buy more expensive products for us. So maybe we want to channel this one a little bit more, we get more money out of it. All that kind of analysis. That's your sales and marketing systems. They get all that data from seller, right? And they go out to the channel and they get the data from the channel and the dealers and deliveries and customer support that are located there. And the system can manage all that for them. Accounting systems and finance systems then are controlling the management of the cash flow, the assets, liability, and your net income or your profit. So accounting is going to be your accounts payable, your accounts receivable. What are we expecting from folks? What do we owe folks? Often tightly integrated with your enterprise resource planning system, which we'll go into in the next presentation. Financial disclosures, your SEC filings, fraud prevention, all those kinds of things that come out of the financial system. And then your finance planning. When you get all that together in that same system, you should be able to use that data then to do much better budgeting, forecasting, financial controls, and all those kinds of things. Human resources and payroll then will be typically run by an HRIS group. So you have an HRIS group. It's separate from your IS team a lot of times because of their access to data and personal identifiable information. They tend to be separated a lot of those systems. And it's supposed to reduce workload in HR professionals. So all the processes that you have to follow, recruitment, evaluation, training, personal planning, benefits administration, the IS system is supposed to reduce the speed, make that fast, make that adaptable, make it as few as HR people as necessary to actually run the processes that are necessary to pay your people and to take care of the people who work for the company. So that's what we got for the initial key trends in IT.